Everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Prepping by Faith, and today we're going to talk about foods that freeze for at least a year. So I wanted to go over this with some people. I feel like there's some out there that are new to prepping, and maybe some of you just aren't used to keeping a lot of food in your freezer. So this right here is an upright freezer. I have it set to 10 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm going to open this up and show you what's inside of it. So in here, I try to keep the majority of my meats, all of my chicken, my ground beef, what few steaks we have. We don't keep very many of those anymore. I think you guys know why. And then I also keep my butter and cheese and some bacon and stuff like that in here as well. And the reason I do this, I try to keep all of this stuff that I know I want to save in one freezer, is so that in case we had an EMP or we lost power or something like that, I know that I would be able to save this one main freezer with my solar generator that I have put back for that reason. So you guys might want to start strategizing that way, especially if you have more than one freezer. Think about what items you would want to save and maybe put the majority of those in that one location. I do have a few other packages of meat that I would retrieve from one of these other freezers over here. I'm going to show you in a minute in that event. But the other thing that I like about this one is it has a locking mechanism on it. So if things were to get really chaotic, I know I can lock this freezer, and this is going to be more protected if somebody were to breach this area than my other freezers that they could easily access. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the meat. What I have here are some packages of ground beef. This is the organic stuff from Sam's Club. And the reason I like to purchase this way is because it's already packaged in these really nice, thick packaging for you. So you don't have to worry about pulling it out of here and sticking it inside of a food saver or something to prolong this meat. So according to FDA, they say that ground beef can be stored for 3 to 4 months. And then after that, it's not that it's unsafe. It just, they say, starts to lose some of its, flavor and appeal and that sort of thing. But with the way this is packaged, I haven't had any issues. We rotate through this and we've kept it for at least a year safely, and it tastes just as good as the fresh stuff if you were to open a fresh package. So I would suggest maybe looking at things like this as a way of even stretching your budget a little bit, just because this stuff is it's $4.98 a pound, and this is organic. So I feel like this is a pretty good price, especially for organic ground beef. And then I don't have to, waste more money on food saver bags repackaging it. So if you were to have your hamburger in, say, one of those little shrink wrapped trays, I would suggest getting it out of that. You don't want to freeze it in that. It's not going to last as long. You would want to repackage that for sure. But that's one of the reasons why I buy that way. And then I also have up here my chicken. I have taken these and just put them inside of another large plastic freezer bag because they are already packaged in a similar nice thick bag to begin with. The only reason I put them in here is just in case they were to get a pinhole or something in them. Sometimes they leak a little bit, so I like to keep them this way. This chicken freezes for a long time. I've had it definitely over a year with no issues, so that's something that you can consider. Just think about your packaging a lot, because your packaging is definitely going to impact how long you're able to keep things like your meat and other things that you want to store inside your freezers. So the other thing I have up here that I wanted to mention to you guys for sure are these eggs. So this is an easy way of maintaining eggs, especially with the bird flu that is going around and impacting all of the birds being culled, and everybody is starting to see things like egg shortages. So you can take your eggs and crack them into a muffin tin and then freeze them for a couple of hours. And then what you're going to do, if you had some of the silicone ones, you could pop them right out. I would probably suggest that. But if you have a regular muffin tin, you would just run some warm water over the backs of those trays and then pop those out and put them inside one of these bags. You want to label it with the date so that you know how long it's been in there, but you can safely keep those eggs for at least a year. I know other channels have mentioned things like that as well. I also keep some packages of hot dogs. They say you can safely store these for a couple months. I've gone longer than that. It's all up to you, what you guys want to do. Nothing I'm saying in here is set in stone, and a lot of it's going to have to do with how you're packaging your food as to how long you're going to be able to store it. The other thing I wanted to show you guys are these packages of butter that I have here. The salted definitely freezes for longer than unsalted. These should last you a year. Safely inside of your freezer. I know I've gone at least that long. This thing's going to start beeping because I left it open a while. I also have here some packages of bacon. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is the cheese. So we have here, we're going to close the door just so that it's not so distracting. So the bricks of cheese, you can freeze for at least 8 months according to FDA. So I've safely kept it, I would say at least a year, and I would suggest you put the bricks in there over the shredded stuff because it doesn't last as long, it doesn't maintain its quality or its flavor as well as the brick stuff does that I have. All right, guys, so here is my other spare freezer. This is, you know, the most recent addition. The reason I bought this little one was because I was concerned about my one that I have that I'm going to show you in a minute that's really old. It's at least 20 years old, maybe older. And I wanted to make sure I had a spare, especially when we noticed what was going on with those freezer shortages a while back. So we went ahead and got this one. This one just handles our overflow. So things like the Eggo Waffles that I have for my kids, these packages of Voila that are really good. If you guys haven't tried any of these, they have a lot of different ones that are pretty good. The chicken and rice is also really, really tasty. I like that one. And then I just have some breaded chicken in here, French fries, things like that, that I know is going to last me at least a year and keep safely in the freezer. The other thing I have down in here is some packages of frozen vegetables and fruit. Frozen vegetables will last at least a year. I would say you can comfortably go past that date a little while, and then, you know, probably a few months at least past that date, and it would still be okay. Frozen fruit, they say at least 8 months. I would say you can comfortably go a year. It just depends on how you store it and if you're partially thawing it out, if you've opened the bag or anything like that. Obviously, if you open the bag, you want to repackage it, because if you leave it open and then you just, you know, clipped it or something like that, it's not going to last as long. So every time you're thinking about putting up food, you always want to think about the way that it's packaged and whatever way is going to allow the least amount of air so that you are not getting freezer burn and stuff like that on your food. Okay, everyone, so in here is where I keep all of my frozen bread and things like the packages of tortillas that I keep in here. I have those in here. So egg McMuffins, stuff like that. These kind of things, these bread type items, I wouldn't recommend you keep longer than a few months just because they tend to get freezer burnt easily. So don't plan on storing tons of this stuff. That's why you want to have things on hand to make bread in an emergency and to make things like your tortillas, because one, you're going to run out of this stuff eventually out of your freezer, and two, you can't keep it for quite as long. But the reason I'm over here is because I wanted to show you these milks that I have put in here. So the way I purchase milk is I get it in those little half-gallon cardboard type containers. You can't freeze it very well in there. If you had the big plastic jugs, you could go ahead and pour off a little bit that you're going to use and then freeze it that way. But I found these online. I find them, they're very efficient and they weren't very expensive. So if anybody's interested, I can go ahead and link that for you guys and share with you where I got these. But these are little quart size containers, and I just pour it in there and leave, you know, some room at the top. You want to leave about an inch or so at the top so that it doesn't freeze and burst in there. But that's how I like to store the milk. That you can store safely for at least 6 months. So the last freezer I'm going to show you is the one in the bottom of my main refrigerator. And this one is where I just keep things that I've packaged, you know, from fresh meat. So one of the things I like to do is get those rotisserie chickens and then cut them in half, separate them, and put them inside these Ziploc bags. These I've had last, they say, a couple of months to 6 months on your already cooked meat. I would definitely say you can go 6 months easy on these. I haven't had any issues. These make a really great addition 2 meals, especially when you want something that's quicker. So this is where I keep that. This is also where I keep any meals that I have leftovers and I've placed inside containers and frozen in here that can last definitely safely several months. Not that it ever lasts that long, because those we usually eat pretty quickly. So I just want to show you this. I also have some extra hot dogs and things like that in here. And then things like the sausage I put in here. I cut in half and stick it in here. They say sausage only lasts a few months or so in the freezer, but I've definitely had sausage last longer than that for me. And I've actually cut it in half and put it inside a freezer Ziploc bag. So I know I've safely used that at least a year on that. So I just wanted to show you guys this. I also wanted to mention that according to FDA, if you have your freezers set to 0 degrees Fahrenheit, that means your food can last indefinitely. So I wanted to mention that on here. I don't think most of us probably have our freezers set to 0 degrees Fahrenheit, but that is an option, something you could do. The food may not be, you know, as tasty or as appealing, and it might lose some of its flavor and that sort of thing, but you could definitely freeze food indefinitely at 0 degrees Fahrenheit. If you guys have enjoyed this video today, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Remember to pray, prep, and put God first. God bless.